Speaker Pelosi, one of the highest endurance and stamina and high motor people I've ever met.
Yeah.
She, not only does she move fast in high heels, but her work ethic is up there bar none. I don't think an AI will ever be equipped to manage that relationship with the principal, to have the back and forth, to get something from where they have it to where they want it to be. And that is just the power of human connection. And ultimately what speechwriting is connecting a person with an audience in a specific place at a specific time on a specific topic. And one of the driving forces is I'm on the quest to find the best burger in America.
Oh, God. Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Capitol Spotlight. Today we are here with Bennett, former chief speechwriter for Speaker Pelosi. Now you are a senior speechwriter over at Fenway Strategies. So welcome to the podcast,
That's right.
sir.
Thanks for having me. I'm really excited. You guys are doing some great work here and bringing the community together, a community that means a lot to me, having spent so many years on the Hill. So I'm excited to be a part of it here.
Absolutely. We got you as a staffer spotlight a while back now when it was featured in the Hill. So we're very glad to have you for that.
That was a surprise. Let me tell you, my friend, Apolitical, just happens to be scrolling Apple News that morning and sees a picture of my face.
Stop it. That's
and he
crazy.
screenshots it. He sends it to me. He says, hey, like, usually that's the kind of photo you see if something bad has happened. Like, Aaron has been arrested or Aaron has been found dead. Like, it's just a profile shot. But it turns out he found that. So I say that to say that you guys are getting excellent reach on those stories.
Maybe we need to get back to that.
The partnership with the Hill, it worked out.
Yeah, for sure. We're thinking of new ways there.
Yeah.
But so we appreciate you being a helper of Connect. I remember after that, I stopped into your office without like knowing you at all because someone on our team had talked to you, and I just like asked your person up front, like, "Hey, like, is Aaron around?" I'm like, "Who are you?" And I'm like, "David from Connect. He's not going to know who I am, but maybe he'll come out." But I appreciate that you came out, said hello. It was good to like meet you then.
Of course. I mean, I've always felt you're never too busy just to say hi. I mean, sometimes you're too busy to have an hour-long coffee in that moment, but it's important that the touch points you make with people on the Hill, because, and this is the main theme of all of your work, this town drives on relationships.
Exactly.
And you're never too busy to tend to those.
Yeah, might as well treat people well, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy.
Fair enough. So just quickly give us a little bit of background, how you got to where you're at now. We'll dive into the minutia there, but like broader, where did you start? How did you get here?
Yeah, so I went to school here. I went to Georgetown, so I was in the city. And I knew the second I walked on campus, fall of 2015, about 10 years ago, that this is the place I wanted to be. And fell in love with the city, fell in love with the people, the culture, the food. And we can get back to that at some point too.
Sure.
But absolutely loved this place and knew I wanted to build a career here and have had many, many opportunities to do so. And I'm grateful for all of them. So through a combination of internships and networking and the Institute of Politics on campus, was able to get my first gig right out of college in August, September of 2019 on the Senate side as a press assistant for Brian Schatz.
Nice.
Fantastic guy, absolutely hilarious. And yes, he runs his Twitter account by himself, and no, low-level digital staffer could match his wittiness. So I didn't even try.
Some stressed out comm staffers hearing that.
Well, it was always fun, like I had tweet notifications on for him, so I'd always find out at 9-10 p.m. Oh, what's the senator thinking tonight? What's he watching? He would take the long flights every weekend to Hawaii, and usually on those flights he would do like Twitter AMAs, and he would just be watching in real time as people are tweeting into him, and he's responding, and he's brilliant at that. And it was an early lesson on the importance of authenticity in communications and how you bottle it, even if I wasn't the one originating the tweets, how you bottle it and spread it out and help your leader tell their story across platforms in the press and all in person, all the ways that you can connect with people.
Yeah, that's great. I love, I've worked for members who they needed really guided on messaging, and like you kind of were the voice at the end of the day, and then members who always knew the right thing to say and were so good at that. And it was always kind of fun working for those members because it made your job easier, right? Like you're just repurposing what they say instead of like starting from scratch. Now, obviously, we'll get into like finding the voice of someone else, which you've obviously done very well. But, it's always nice to be like, I don't have to decide what this person thinks. Like they know. It's a good feeling.
And every principal is different, and oftentimes it takes a while to figure out their quirks. But I would say most folks who make it to this place, those elected leaders who put themselves before their peers in their community and win a race, often tough races, have something to say.
Yeah.
They have a story to tell, and oftentimes your job as staff is to help them tell it in the way that's most authentic, the way that's most compelling, and the way that's most effective to achieve the ends that they want to achieve. So it's all about figuring out, what makes that member tick, what do they care about, and how you can play a role in amplifying what they have to say.
For sure. We're going to get off on a professional development tangent now real quick,
Sure.
but for all the policy staffers on the Hill and for the comm staffers, anyone can learn from this, but how do you go about figuring out a member's voice? You've had to do it. What are your steps?
Yeah, it's some part research, right? You do as much as you can to read everything they've written, to listen to everything that they've said. And I've been fortunate in that the senator by that time had been in office for 6 years in the Senate, but had a longer career, obviously, back in Hawaii. So there's a lot of rich text to pull from, and he tweeted every day. So there's always something new to figure out exactly, what the voice is, what's on their mind. With the speaker, when I got to her office, had been in Congress for 34 years.
Yeah.
So anything she had to say on a subject, she had said.
For sure.
So a lot of that is research, but an important part of it is also that relationship building with the principal to whatever extent you can. And everyone can build a relationship with the principal in the office. It's not who has the most face time. It's how you make the most of the interactions that you have. And for me, I've always prioritized listening in those settings and really hearing, especially in a situation that is closed doors, like a meeting or a prep session for an interview, really digging into how their mind works and how they get from point A to point B to point C to what comes out of their mouth is really critical, because a lot of people think voice is just the words, but in actuality, it's so much deeper than that. It's also the way they think about the issues.
For sure.
And when you're trying to replicate their voice, you're also trying to replicate their mental process. So you're thinking about things in the same way they're thinking about them.
That's great. Kind of an odd question off of that, but my mind goes to AI. Because I'm thinking about someone who's been in office for so long, who you can just compile all of this former text of what they've said and written. I feel like you could train an AI model really well to spit out what their tone is and what their voice is. So that's kind of a tangent. But off of that, as a speechwriter, someone who's a creative when it comes to writing, do you use AI at all? Where are you at on that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something that this industry is talking and thinking a lot about. So our opinions are changing in real time, and the tactics we're using are changing in real time. Me personally, I use it for research. I think it's a great tool to aggregate information, right? Especially if it's, hey, find a quote that says something similar to yada yada.
Yeah.
You still got to fact check it, right?
Sure.
You still got to double check all that work. But it's a great way to synthesize information and to digest it quickly, and it can often give you a starting point. Another example is if you need a joke or a kernel of an idea. It's not funny,
but it'll point you in the right direction.
But if it's a brute force algorithm, right, where you could say, give me 50 jokes about ducks, and maybe one has a kernel of something that you can turn into an actual joke that a human might laugh at. So it has its uses for sure, but I think to your point about just training it on a model and letting it spit out stuff, I think what we've seen when that happens is that the text is pretty stilted. It doesn't feel human, and that's because it's not. And what these models are very good predictive tools. It's good at telling you, based on this history, what is the most likely next word. And that's about it. It can't bring you into the moment. It can't connect with another person to tell you what they're thinking, what they're feeling. And it certainly can't. I mean, we've all been in these situations with our bosses where they have edits to something that you've written or something you've done. And I don't think an AI will ever be equipped to manage that relationship with the principal, to have the back and forth, to get something from where they have it to where they want it to be. And that is just the power of human connection. And ultimately what speechwriting is connecting a person with an audience in a specific place at a specific time on a specific topic. And there's so many necessarily human nuances to that craft that I don't think I don't think that we'll ever quite, we're certainly not there yet. I don't think we'll ever quite get there, but that doesn't mean we can't use these tools to make our lives easier.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything else to say there. Thank you for that. That was
it's my defense of speechwriting. I mean, but I think it's important, right? It is, and the reason I love it, the reason I got into it, and maybe we'll talk about this a little later on, but is because it's the most human of communications, right? It is the oldest, going all the way back, right? Telling stories around campfires is how our entire species evolved and learned to communicate through language. And it is the basic distillation of persuasion, of mobilization, of all the tactics that we use on the Hill and campaigns in the business world. It's about how you connect with someone.
Yeah.
And that's what is at the core of speechwriting. You tell them a story, and that's what we do best.
That's awesome. It's going to take us about 45 minutes to get through your resume because I have more
I got
questions.
time. Let's do it.
But so off of that, how did you get so interested in writing, in speech writing, because in communications in general, because you obviously have a lot of built up like ideas about what it is to you. Where did that come from?
A lot of conversations with people smarter than me.
Fair enough.
is the true answer to that. I had always been interested in political communications. Both my parents are communicators. My dad, they met in journalism school.
Very cool.
They both diverged. My mom got into political communications, policy management. My dad got into corporate communications. But that was kind of in my blood.
Gotcha.
That basics and politics had always enthralled me. I think I was sort of coming of age during Obama's upswing, and that was sort of the first formative political memory of mine.
For sure.
And just captured my attention. I wasn't one of those that watched West Wing from a young age. I got into that in college actually,
for sure.
but real life politics had always fascinated me. So that's where at least the concept of political speechwriting had its origin. But I went into all this career-wise open to anything in the field, right? And I think that's what's so valuable about these press assistant gigs is that you get to do everything. You get to write the tweets, you get to make the videos, take the photos, do the graphics, build the press list. Sometimes you get to pitch a reporter, even if it's just an email, you write the press release, right? You get to do a little bit of everything and test out, I knew instantly that I was not going to be a graphic designer. I could do the basics on Canva and that's about it. But I knew I was kind of interested in press, but what really got me going was getting to write something long form. We had a speechwriter in the office, and she gave me some chances to do some real stuff. But a lot of the long form stuff I was doing was either Facebook posts, Medium posts, anything I could do just to write more than 280 characters. Yeah. So that is where the interest quickly took hold once I got to the Hill and got to really see what every position was really about. But it wasn't until COVID. So I joined the Hill in the fall of 2019. COVID hit not long after. So we're all locked in our houses, and I'm sitting there having this existential crisis about what do I want to do with my career? What do I care about? What causes my passion, but also what gets me up in the morning? What work do I feel most fulfilled doing? What tasks, get the best out of me? Because I'm a huge believer that everyone can be truly excellent. You just have to find what that thing is that brings it out of you. For sure. And that, for me, what really got me going was speechwriting. So I just picked up the phone and called people. And this is before you guys were around. I really wish you had been, because it would have made this a little easier for me. But it was a combination of LinkedIn stalking, and we had a speechwriter in our office who was so generous in connecting me to people. But I just got on the phone and talked to people who'd done this job for real. And most of them were very, very generous and got back to me and gave me 30 minutes, an hour, sometimes even 2 hours, because we're all sitting at home in the middle of the pandemic. What better things do you have going on? But so many folks were generous to me and in helping me form the way I think about speech writing, giving me tips and tools that I use to this day. And that was really how I found my way into this field, just from jumping in the water and trying to swim.
Yeah. So with someone like Obama, obviously he's an excellent communicator, but what really helped him out in that 2008 campaign was use of digital media. And then you see it with Trump now using digital media. And I think a lot of communicators, especially the digital people, will say that's where comms is now. So where do you think the place for long form communication is still in the political landscape?
It's interesting you say that. You can look through history, and the communicators who mastered their medium were the most successful at the time.
Fair.
Right? Like Lincoln, where his speeches were short, concise, got printed in the newspaper. Yeah. Right? You have someone like FDR who mastered the radio. You have someone like JFK who mastered television. And we have an era of digital media where folks with celebrity star power, authenticity are thriving, and Brian Schott's included in that, right? Because he's learned how to master that particular medium, and now you're seeing folks, the next generation of leaders, rising on short form video and TikTok and Instagram Reels and YouTube Shorts and all that. You don't need me to tell you this, but I think that's always been true, is that, you know, we see the brightest political stars evolving if their skill sets to match what the dominant medium of the time is. But yet through all that, we're still giving speeches. Yeah. So there is something still so powerful, so innate. I mean, we saw, and not to get too topical, but Gavin Newsom gave an address to the nation, and when he has a message to communicate, what does he do? He goes in front of a camera and he talks to people. Sure. And there's something so basic, so human about that. Yeah. That lets your authenticity shine through in a way that is difficult across other mediums, just face-to-face talking to someone. I mean, there's a reason we have stump speeches, right? Campaigns are built around these moments where you go and talk to someone. And is it the most efficient in terms of getting eyeballs on you? No, but it is by far the best way to look into someone's eyes and to ask for their vote and to persuade and to move them, and also to take in what they're giving you. Yeah. Right? I saw it. I was on the campaign trail, and this is jumping ahead, but we can come back to it. But I was on the campaign trail last fall, and getting to see some of these candidates give speeches, you're getting real-time feedback from the crowd. What's working, what's not working. There's a give and take there. That's why I say connection. That makes it such a powerful tool. So all that's to say, there's absolutely a place for it. And do I think everything needs to be a keynote address? No. I mean, we are past those days. You know, maybe those days were ancient Greece, but we're beyond that. But that doesn't mean it's not a tool in your toolkit. For sure. And it's something we talk a lot about at my current firm at Fenway, because we were formed from Obama chief speechwriters and national security spokesmen, and we do have a lot of talented speechwriters on our team. But what I'm so excited about working there is that they are redefining what it means to be a speechwriter into a strategist. Very cool. Right? We call ourselves a strategic communications firm because, yeah, we do keynotes. I wrote 4 commencement addresses this year. Like, speechwriting is the bread and butter, no doubt about it. But what's at the kernel of speechwriting, telling a good story, is important in all methods of communication. Right? Like, if you're a leader who has something to say, you have a story to tell about yourself, about what you're trying to achieve, about who you're talking to and what their needs and wants are. Who better than a speechwriter to help you find that message and to tell it in a way that is most authentic to you, that resonates, that's compelling, that's effective, that reaches all the key constituencies you have. Because as speechwriters, we're always mindful of who is hearing the audience is first, so who is hearing our message. In the speaker's office, we were always thinking about, you know, whenever she gave a speech, it's going to be heard by members of her caucus. It's going to be heard by across the aisle. It's going to be heard by the constituent groups. It's going to be heard by K Street. It's going to be heard by voters. It's going to be heard in the press. Speechwriters are just naturally attuned to thinking about all those things. And that's why I think we can play such a key role as communications strategists, because what we do, what we're good at, is at the heart of what it means to be an effective communicator. Yeah, and I think short form editing or short form communications can obviously win elections, but I think if you really want to sell a vision or evoke like a positive emotion or like a strong emotion that is not just like quick hate, I think you do have to rely on that more like long form communication, because there is that coercion as part of it, and there is such a skill that goes into evoking those strong emotions of like moving forward in a vision together. And so I think that's so special. It all builds. The short form builds on the long form, and vice versa, right? Like a tweet is a thought. A thought can become a speech. A speech can be boiled down to a thought. Like, the most important thing, and this is in politics, this is on the Hill, this is in corporate America too. We do a lot of work in that sphere, in the nonprofit sphere. You need a story that you're telling. You need a message you want to drive. You need to tell people who you are and what you're doing. And that is the top rung, and that informs everything else. That informs your speeches, but it also informs your tweets. And I think speechwriters are so equipped to help tell that story, because that is, at the end of the day, what our craft is. For sure. Helping people dig inside themselves and say something in a way that is compelling and unique and makes sense of the moment. That's great. Do you have a speech that you've written that is like your speech? You know, like when you think about the one that I'm most proud of, like you think back to that moment in 2019 or whatever, of like that one speech. Well, the funny thing about speechwriting is that we have the speechwriter's code, and you're not going to love where I'm going with this, which is, but I say it seriously because at least I truly believe, and I think most speechwriters are on board with this, that every speech that we contribute to is ultimately the principles, because our job is to be their pen and their brain when they're too busy to sit down and do it themselves. Sure. So truly what we produce is the speech that they would write if they had the time, but they are doing a million things, have a million balls in the air that they need to keep track of, and we just contribute our little part to make that easier. But it's their speech, right? It's their ideas, it's their words, it's their argument. And I would never, want to take anything away from that. But what I will say is there are speeches that I've written that have left lessons that I've learned. And this sort of ties to the point I was making. There was a speech I was working on with the speaker the last year of her speakership. It was a pretty big speech. And I had taken the first stab at it, and it wasn't clicking. I had written it out, it's a long speech, 15, 20 minutes, and it's just something about it. I wasn't pulling the threads together. I didn't get the story down. I didn't have a clear message. It was muddied on the page. But time was up, and it was time to go bring it to her. And we had like a week or so before the actual speech. We had a prep session, because it's rare if there's a prep session a week out from a speech in that sort of environment, because it's so high paced.
Yeah, I definitely want to talk about process at some point. But
we can get into that, and that'll make more sense. But it was a rarity to have that kind of time, lead time on a speech. I brought it to her. It wasn't good, and I literally handed it to her. I think I said, "Ma'am, this is not a good speech. This is not a good draft, and I'm so sorry. I just couldn't get there. I couldn't figure out what I wanted to say." And she turns to me and looks at me and says, "That's okay. I know what I want to say." And man, it felt like you feel like crap at that moment, because you feel like you let her down. And in actuality, it crystallized for me what I was talking about before, that your job is to breathe life into their ideas. And the reason it wasn't clicking for me was because I wasn't the one who had to stand there and say something in that moment, right? I didn't have a good idea, but it wasn't about my ideas. Yeah. At the end of the day, it was about what she wanted to communicate. And we worked like hell to rewrite that speech, and it came out pretty good. But ultimately, it's a lesson in, we say authenticity is king, but it is most true in speeches that they only work if they are coming from what is deep inside the speaker.
Or else you just tune out immediately. Like, you just inherently know if it's authentic or not. And so that's so special when you can capture that. And when you have speechwriters who can do that, but also a principal that is able to be authentic. And I think so many people, like Gavin Newsom, so many people have very polarizing opinions on him, but that man can give a speech. He knows has
what he believes.
Charisma, and he really knows how to get a message out there. And so I think that's so powerful when you can do it well. Yeah,
and it is something that has to come from deep inside the principal. And I think most who make it to this level have that. And your job as a speechwriter is to bottle it, right, and capture it and bring it out into the world in whatever way you can. But it has to start and end with them.
Yeah. So let's talk about process. Yeah. Obviously, every situation is different, but as far as kind of the run-of-the-mill, bigger speech goes, maybe what's the process there?
It's insane. It's psychotic, and I truly hope your audience, if you guys are listening, find a better process than what I have.
Don't become a speechwriter.
I am not endorsing. No, be a speechwriter, but don't do what I do, because it is truly psychotic. But I found that it works for the way my brain works. So you get a speech. Obviously, like I said, everything starts with the principles. So if you're lucky enough, you get to sit down with them and have a conversation, what their ideas are, or what they want to talk about, any stories they have to share. If you don't get that time, the research is just as valuable. Oftentimes you go find a speech they've given on a similar topic, and there's a line there that triggers a thought, and you can build out something from there. But you take your inputs and it starts to make sense of them. You open up a blank page, and I just kind of put stuff in there. Sometimes they're half thoughts. Sometimes they're title headers. It's not an outline, but it is just random content that kind of makes sense. And I dump it all into a document until, I'm kind of happy with the contours of it. And then I spend an hour or two just putting it all in the right order. Truly, it's insane. It is a bunch of half thoughts and quotes and ideas and stories, and sometimes copy and pasted from an article that I had to then I highlight it red, so I go back and rephrase it, so I'm not just pulling exactly from someone else's text. That I go through and reorder it, and then I dive in wherever it suits me, wherever I see a gap. and just fill it in.
Nice.
And I go line by line. And the way I write, it's super slow. And again, I don't endorse any of this because it's not the most efficient way to do this. But I go line by line, and I don't move on to the next one until I'm satisfied with it. So the first draft takes a very long time.
It's so stressful.
It is so stressful. But let me tell you, when you unlock it, right, that moment of realization, when you move a paragraph from here to there and it all makes sense, right, or you nail the distillation of the thesis in one line, right, and you put it in the right place, that is like the most euphoric feeling professionally that you can have, because it's like a mission accomplished kind of moment. For sure. But I say that because it is a slow process for me, but the first draft is usually closer to deliverable than there are some folks who can just start, from A to Z, write a whole thing, and then the next day they'll go back and rewrite it and just keep iterating on it until it's closer to where they want. For me, I just painstakingly, methodically move my way through a draft until it's in a state that I'm satisfied with.
So how do you organize that? Like, if you're writing a 20 to 30 minute speech, and are you just like in Word or Google Docs or whatever, and it's just scroll and scroll and scroll?
It's just idea. Yeah, well, Google Docs has this new feature, newish.
Like tabs?
The tabs I've never figured out. Maybe I'm not quite there yet. But you can make it pageless.
Okay.
So it's a broader display, and there's no page breaks, so you can just scroll and see your ideas in one big place. So I do that and just put as much content in. 30 minutes, you probably need a different approach. That's a long speech.
Gotcha.
I'm talking like a 10 to 12 to 15, which is about... JFK announced the moon program in about 13 minutes. So I am a strong believer you don't need any more than that to make your argument for something, that seems outlandish at the time, but you could do it effectively in 13 minutes. So I think that's about the outer limit. If you have a longer situation, like obviously I wouldn't approach writing a book this way, like a larger 60-minute corporate keynote. I think you need a different approach. And that's probably more of an outline, and that involves a lot more back and forth with the person too, to get to a place where you have that much content. But if you're just writing a speech on spec, 10, 15 minutes, I just throw it all in there and figure it out.
So once you get your draft, you bring it to the principal. How many steps of like feedback are there, or like what's the typical timeline? How many days? What does it typically look like?
Well, are we talking in my current firm life or back on the Hill?
Back on the Hill.
Back on the Hill. Back on the Hill. So Speaker Pelosi, one of the highest endurance and stamina and high motor people I've ever met. She... Not only does she move fast in high heels, but her work ethic is up there bar none. And she would be doing, let's see, on a typical day in the morning, she would speak on the floor, have 2 to 3 events within the Capitol building, and then have 2 or 3 events in the evening. And then within that, we were also doing statements, dear colleague letters, regular letters, like anything that needed to get written would usually come from the speechwriters. So on any given day, we're churning out 5, 8, 10 written products just to keep up with that day. So there were 2 speechwriters in the speaker's office. So
2?
We did literally 2. Yeah, we did the best we could. But there's that high volume. So typically, I think there were 2 speeches, the one I talked about before, and her announcement in November that she was stepping down from Congress. Just 2 speeches that I recall that I was able to spend more than a day or 2 on, just in terms of lead time. So typically you're moving really, really quick with this. And for a lower stakes thing, like oftentimes she would go speak at these press conferences at the House Triangle or elsewhere around. And she usually knows what she wants to say. In those settings, you got to put together a card, just with some guidance, and the rest is up to her. So in those sort of situations, you wouldn't necessarily need an insane amount of time, nor a lot of back and forth with the principal. But if it's a larger speech, like floor speeches, we always went over very, very closely. Big keynote speeches, maybe a day or 2 in advance, you have a prep session so you can take larger big picture edits and then work a new draft in and go back and forth. It depended on the type of project, but it was on the Hill. It's quick turn. You're surviving day to day to the point where one of the stories I tell is she was meeting a foreign leader, and when she greeted foreign leaders, we set up the press at the end of the hallway right outside her office, and they would do this handshake. They both give like 2 minutes of remarks right up at the podium, direct to press, and that was that. Low, like high stakes, but like in terms of a work product, not too intense to produce. So she had one of those in the morning, and I'd written it up, brought it up to her. We're going to do prep literally right before she walks out and addresses the press. That was typical for those sorts of events. And I get into her office, then right outside her office was the executive suite, where her team, they managed the inflow and outflow of people and paper and all that. So I'm in that holding space waiting to go in. Her meeting's running late. And one of her executives, Emily, come up to me and she goes, "Hey, so she mentioned she wants to take a look at this speech that's 5 days from now." And as I said, we were working day to day at that point, just absolutely drowning and trying to stay afloat. So obviously I hadn't written it. It's like, oh, great. I had like 5 to 10 minutes. I don't think the speaker knows this. I had like 5 to 10 minutes sitting in that outer office. Thankfully, that meeting went late to write what I could. So I'm in there in the dock, just grinding away, like trying to write as fast as possible. Typos, I mean, it's a mess. She brings me in to go over the speech. So I pull up the speech in a separate tab, and now I have 2 windows going side by side, and I'm taking edits in one and writing the speech in the other. And finally, I get to a point where it is fine, like if just to put something in front of her and get a reaction. So I surreptitiously send it to Emily in the outer office. Emily, like a champ, comes in, hand behind her back with the cards printed out, goes behind the chair and slips it to me. And the speaker looks at me and goes, "Oh, okay, we're done with this one. So I want to take a look at yada yada." And I was able to whip it out and hand it to her. That's awesome. So it's the power of teamwork for sure. But it trying to take lessons from all this, her level of preparation was so high, and her expectation for you was to be equally, if not more so, prepared. So it was an awakening to me that, when you're in these situations, you're building relationship with the principals, you're serving them and their needs and making sure that they're successful. You have to keep a 360 scope on everything that they could possibly ask. Because it turns out that event it was with someone that she had a close relationship with, so it was on her mind more. And I should have done my due diligence there. But it's an example of a situation where you just need to be performing at 110% because your boss is. And if you're going to keep up with her, you got to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, and so you guys are churning out content, and there's only 2 speechwriters. I can't believe that. That blows my mind for how much you guys are doing. And so you got to be at 110%. But you got to hit writer's block at some point, right? Like, how do you get through that?
It's more of an issue now. In the speaker's office, very rarely, because there was always something that she had said. Okay. Right? So I don't know what to say about healthcare today. Let's go look in 2010 when she passed the Affordable Care Act. She's making these arguments for the bill that you can draw on. And if you're not copying the language exactly, which is A-okay as far as speechwriting goes, a lot of people don't realize that. Like, the principal can plagiarize themselves. That is okay. And oftentimes they're looking for that. They're looking for, in her office, we called them chestnuts, but like these lines that she says every time healthcare is a right, not a privilege. There's these little lines that she would say every time she talked about a specific subject. China. If we do not stand up for human rights in China, we don't have the moral standing to stand up for human rights anywhere. That you would need to be in the text, otherwise she's going to throw it out. Sometimes you have to. You're building from something. Now clients come to us because either A, they don't know what necessarily they want to say, or B, they don't have a long history on the subject, right? They're still building their narrative and their brand and their language about how to talk about certain things. And that's the expertise we bring as speechwriters. So in these situations, you sometimes have to be a little bit more creative. Yeah. I find even still you can get something to work with from remarks they've given in the past or stories they've told. A lot of times you get an intake call with these people, with these clients, and you just let them spout off for an hour, and there's something in there you can work with. But I find there's inspiration almost anywhere you look. Like I'm looking for great writing even outside of 9 to 5. Anywhere I can find it, right? Be it television shows. We were talking a little bit before about Breaking Bad, Succession. I mean, some of these shows are so well written. Well, a colleague of mine wrote in a commencement address this year that quoted White Lotus, the recent season. Yeah, I kid you not. Lachlan, little brother. you can find it pretty much anywhere.
Yeah.
Music, art, journalism. There's this story in The Atlantic that I will never forget. On the 20th anniversary of 9/11, the cover story was about a writer who had lost a childhood friend in one of the towers, and 20 years later reflecting, that life that could have been. Just hauntingly beautiful. And there's so much good writing. People don't realize how much writing is in our world.
Yeah.
Like how much language powers everything we do.
Yeah, fair.
And you can find a kernel, a seed, a nugget anywhere in an idea, and that's just something you can build on.
Fair enough. Last process question.
I hope it's helpful a little bit. I feel like my processes are so psycho that I hope that no one is taking any lessons
Just
from
going
it.
into the mind of Aaron. I love it. As someone who's not that good of a writer, maybe I'll learn something from it and go crazy.
It's helpful because when I interviewed for this job, they asked me about my writing process, and I hadn't really thought about it, so I had to construct a framework for how I attack. Because sometimes in these situations you just go, right? Especially in the speaker's office, you're talking about that high volume. You have no choice but to just get in the document and to write something, right?
Yeah.
And you're relying on whatever talent you got, any experience you got, an idea that comes from a colleague. You have other. I always had another writer in there you can bounce ideas off of, but also brilliant press people who can give you a line for that they want the media to pick up on.
Yeah.
You have policy people who know this stuff inside and out. You just do it and make the most of the resources you have. But it's only when you slow down, and now in the firm life, you typically get a longer lead on these sorts of projects. You start thinking about process and how to optimize yours, and you're really reflective about how you attack each individual project.
You never had time to do that on the Hill, right?
You just go. I mean,
Yeah.
it's the nature of what we do, and I think it's why so many people find it so thrilling and exciting because there's always something happening. You're always on to the next project.
Yeah.
But the downside is you don't often take the time to develop yourself professionally.
Yeah, for sure.
To figure out how am I doing things and how can I do them better.
So are you someone that when you have a writing assignment, project, whatever you want to call it, ready to go, and you have to just get down to writing on the page or computer,
Yeah.
do you put earphones in? Are you blasting music? Are you quiet room? Do you need to go into another room? What is it like?
It's changed for me. In school, in college, and even early on in my career, I could do some sort of music, usually not with vocals, but some sort of beat or instrumental really was my go-to. Now I'm closer to a silent environment is my optimal. If I'm in a coffee shop or if my girlfriend's taking a call next to me, I'll put in headphones and something that is dull and not interesting. But if there's words in the sound or if it's a podcast, I start thinking too much and you're out of there are a lot of people who can do it and it's really impressive. People who can listen to real music and do tasks, but it just takes me right out of the moment.
Enough.
So I tried to optimize for quiet to let my brain kind of simmer there, but I also try to take breaks. Too much of that kind of intense concentration can wear you out, especially if it's silent and you're just staring at the page, going. Maybe every hour or two, you just step back and listen to a song for 4 minutes, and it kind of shake up the brain chemistry, and then get back in.
Nice. That's great. Thank you for all of those insights.
I hope that was helpful.
I had no plan to go there before this conversation, but so much just came to mind.
If it's helpful, but I mean, what I love about speech writing is that everyone does it differently.
Yeah.
Everyone comes from a different background. You have folks like me who are political communicators who just enjoy the writing. But you also have lawyers that can write really intelligibly. You have reporters who are really adept at capturing human stories. You have creatives, creative writers and screenwriters who just have a gift for flourish.
Yeah, for sure.
You have policy people who are really good at distilling policy into something that makes sense to an average person. You come out from all sorts of backgrounds and all sorts of approaches, and then everyone does the thing on the page in their own special way.
Yeah.
And it's just fascinating to hear from others. I talk to my colleagues all the time about how they do things and try to pick up nuggets, but ultimately you can't replicate anyone else's process. You just have to find your own.
Do you ever watch the Aaron Sorkin part of West Wing or even Veep? Genius dialogue either direction, but do you ever think I'd like to do that someday?
Screenwrite?
Yeah, but with the political, or maybe just in general,
Yeah.
or with the political side of things.
I think what those, and I don't think I'm in that caliber. I think I'm a long ways from that. But the
Don't sell yourself
brilliance.
short,
Well,
sorry.
it's something you learn, but it's also, there's some of these people are just born with a gift,
Yeah,
especially the kind of writing it takes to nail the dialogue for sure, which is impressive in and of itself. B, tell the story, right? Move the plot along on screen. C, layer in all of these allusions and
for sure.
motifs and metaphor, like stuff that, you don't realize until you listen to like the Ringer analyze it. Like there are folks operating at a very high level in that writing, and it is a totally different beast than political speech
Yeah,
writing.
for sure.
Absolutely. And with different goals and aims too, like necessarily so. But yeah, I mean, it sounds like a fascinating challenge. Like I would love to try my hand at it. I'm not sure I ever will, but it is so impressive what they're able to do.
Whenever you learn about those like Hollywood consultants who are just like former political staffers,
That
say,
sounds
like,
cool. Yeah.
I'm like, I could do that. Like,
Yep.
bring me out to Hollywood. Let's
Yep.
tell you how Congress is supposed to look. I can do that. You know?
I mean, I've been here for 5 years, so I don't know. I don't know if I'm necessarily at that level, but that sounds like a good gig.
But you know how like every person who's worked in the White House or on the Hill, like they'll watch one of those TV shows and go, "Oh, that's not how it actually
That room's
looks."
not there. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Classic. All right, let's actually get back to your resume.
Yeah, let's do it.
So, all right, we left off shots. You start to look for a speech writing gig. Where does it go from there?
Yeah, so it's the summer of 2020. I'd gotten connected to some folks in the speechwriting search, and they had set me up with opportunities to do some volunteer speechwriting on campaigns. And this is sort of that pivotal moment that changed everything for me. But because I wasn't getting the speechwriting reps in the office, we had a speechwriter, and I'm like not about to get on someone's turf, and she's wonderful and still a great friend. I had to look outside the office to get some of those reps in, because the hardest thing about speechwriting, breaking into it, is no one lets you write unless you're a speechwriter, but no one lets you become a speechwriter until you've written.
Yeah.
It's that chicken and egg problem that is so hard to crack. And the way I did it was doing it outside the office, volunteer, on my own time. And that helped me build up a portfolio and get real experience writing in that long form. And it's the strategic writing too. It's one thing just to write, but also on a campaign, you have a goal, right? You have you have a mission, you have an audience, you have a message, and your job as a speechwriter is to weave all those things into a package and do it creatively and authentically to whoever you're writing for. So that's where I got to cut my teeth and get some of those reps. Cool. And I guess I had impressed enough folks by the end of that when the job in the speaker's office, deputy speechwriter, opened up early 2021, I was able to put my hat in the ring.
Very cool. So what's the difference between, if you've got two speechwriters, you end up being chief, you were deputy, what's the difference between the two roles?
Yeah, every shop operates differently. In that situation, the chief speechwriter is in charge of managing the workflow, right? So every week, you get the slate of speeches that are coming down the pike, and the chief speechwriter is divvying them up. You take these, you take those. Sometimes you do it by type of thing that you have to produce. Like in that situation, the deputy was responsible for video scripts. It was early COVID. We're still doing, 8 of these video scripts a week, like just to all the events that were still virtual. So that was the realm of the deputy. They would also do the statements for Earth Day and Hispanic Heritage Month and all those the stuff that we know is on the calendar that's coming up every year. That's a little more predictable. That was the domain of the deputy, and their job was just to keep things chugging along. Like everything that we know is going to happen, the deputy takes care of it, gets it done. Chief speechwriter edits it, it goes up the chain. But I will say, when I was the deputy, our chief speechwriter, absolutely fantastic. She was great about getting me FaceTime with the speaker. Nice. And when it was my work, I got to put it in front of her.
That's great.
I got to get the praise or the feedback. But that's an important part of the growth process. And ownership over that work is key. And she taught me the lesson that in these sort of situations, you take everything seriously, but not personally. Right? Like if you get feedback from your principal, it is not about you as a writer.
Right, yeah.
It is about
it's hard to separate
whether or not
that.
It is so hard. I mean, especially when they're looking you in the eye and they say, this isn't good. Like it feels, like a sting. And especially for someone like me, I mean, I was in this job at 23 when I stepped into the deputy job and turned 24 right after. So I'm still very young, and you don't have, you still feel that imposter syndrome.
Yeah.
and you don't necessarily have the experience in the big arenas to be able to look back on and hold on to and say, hey, like I know how to compete at this level.
Yeah.
I know how to do this job. So when you're getting that kind of feedback, sometimes it's tough if you haven't built up, the self-confidence to know you belong and you can do work that's worthy of being in that job. So that was an adjustment for sure. But ultimately, the chief speechwriter is in charge of the big stuff, right? Like the stuff that's going to be on the news, the stuff that involves a lot of principal management and working closely, the things that would get you the call at 2 a.m. to work on something. That's usually the chief speechwriter's domain, and then anything that happens rapidly.
Yeah.
So there were situations when I became the chief speechwriter that I would be in the room while legislative strategy decisions are being made and I'm writing the statement to announce it. And there was one time where I had two, again, with a split window in the speaker's office. It's not like the best strategy, but I had two windows open. I had one version of the statement if we went path A, one version for path B, and I'm writing them both simultaneously. You have members weighing in, you have staff weighing in, everyone's trying to decide. The speaker finally goes, okay, now it's time to decide A or B, and looks at me and goes, let's go A. And that was the statement that went out. And those kind of moments, you need someone who is more experienced and has more reps under their belt to be able to manage that and make sure it gets done without a hitch. So that's sort of the purpose by having the senior and the junior person to balance the workload.
Man, that's super cool. Thank God we have people like you. I could never do something like that.
It's high stress,
The digital staffer part of me just cannot comprehend writing that much and doing it quickly and being organized. So props to you, sir.
But a lot of it's, to your point, organization and process, right? And my writing process is a mess, but I am it is important to me to build good systems to do good work. So building that, you have your calendar of how you track these assignments and where they are in the process. It's absolutely critical. And we'll get into this if we talk about the convention, but process is absolutely key, especially as you expand scale and you shrink timeline.
Before we get there, how long were you on the speechwriting team for Speaker Pelosi as speaker?
It was April 2021 until she left office as speaker in January of 2023. Okay. So just under 2 years. Cool. And I spent the first 9 or 10 months as the deputy. And then there's a huge shakeup in the press shop as folks moved on to other opportunities. And the chief speechwriter at the time, she got promoted to deputy communications director. And by virtue of being in the hot seat, I got moved up along too. So
nice.
So grateful to be in the right place at the right time.
Absolutely.
And I got to do that final year as her chief speechwriter.
Nice. So before we get there, last question here. Being around or being in the room for such important moments, being around a speaker, do you have any memories in particular that really stick out of those moments in the office or on site at an event where you're just like, oh, this is so cool to be here?
Though there's a few. The one that sticks out as, wow, this is awesome, was the remarks by President Zelensky when he came at Christmas time in 2022, right at the tail end of her speakership, and gave this barn burner of a speech in English, brilliant. And I got to stand in the back of most of our team got to stand in the back of the chamber for that, and just to watch it from very, very, very afar. But to be a part of a moment in history like that, the speaker always talks about how her father was in the chamber when Winston Churchill came at the start of World War II to prompt and poke and urge us into action. And she talked about how that's an important part of her family legacy, is how he was in the room for that, and she got to do this for Zelensky. And I can't stop thinking about that. That was bar none, just so cool to just be a observer, a passive observer in a moment of history, which was really neat. Something that is less cheery, or I guess that's a difficult situation too, but awesome to behold. But on a different note, when the Dobbs decision came down, I believe it was a Thursday or a Friday, and these decisions come out at 10. I think it was the 3rd or 4th, so this is happening at 10:30, and she goes on for her weekly press conference every week, same time, 10:45 on Thursday, or maybe it was a Friday, whatever the day it was. She was going to go on live television momentarily when this decision comes down. So we're in the prep session. When the decision comes down, I saw it first just because I'm scrolling Twitter like a crazy person. I see the decision and alert to the room, and instantly it's going to be the first thing she says at the press conference.
Yeah,
You have to address it. You have no choice. And we had worked on a statement in advance, as you do, just kind of knowing the situation. And I had it with me. I had it printed out. Over preparation. Yeah, I learned my lesson.
This time.
Learned my lesson from the first time. So I had it in front of me, and the whole room looks at me. I walk over and hand it to her, and she takes her pen and she marks it up, and then moments later walks out in front of the country and delivers that.
That's crazy.
That statement. So being able to play a small role in that, being in the room for that sort of situation, was also one of those like, wow, I can't believe I'm here. And you know, and that statement she rewrote. To be clear, she rewrote that statement entirely. I don't want to take credit for the words that came out of her mouth.
You're still there.
Yeah, I was there. I had a piece of paper with, you know, some helpful, you know, starting points
She
on
used
it.
and. She said and.
Yeah, there's something. It's sad day. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff there that she could draw from. But no, again, all her. But it was cool to be, as terrible as that moment was, for so many people and for the country. It was such a rare opportunity to be at the niche, and she was the first person to get out and respond on camera because it was her regularly scheduled time, and our team was prepared. We were ready.
That's the beauty of Capitol Hill. Like, you don't get a lot of those experiences if you're not there, you know. But so, all right, she is no longer speaker. She becomes an ordinary member, you know, as much as a former speaker can be. And so
breaking a mold. I mean, this is the first time it had happened. Denny Hester did it briefly in 07 when she became speaker. So she had known about that precedent that he like got in office and staff and yada yada. But it's the first time you had an emerita, right? Not emeritus, but a speaker emerita.
That was cool.
But no one has stuck around. I mean, she made no bars about it. She was not going to leave. And Denny left after 7 months. Like she was not going to leave. She was here to serve.
Yeah, for sure.
And she was going to continue in the fight.
Yeah, and so you see that staff shrink, I assume, quite a bit from speaker staff to
about
a personal
10%
office.
of the staff, maybe 15. It was smaller.
But she's still Speaker Pelosi, right?
Yeah.
So she doesn't all of a sudden become obsolete. Like, she is still the voice of the Democratic Party at that point.
Well, I mean, no, she was very clear that she wanted to let the new leadership have their moment. Okay. But I will say she was still a voice, and the demand for her voice outside the Capitol was also so large.
Yeah.
I mean, influxes of invitations to events, we went to South by Southwest that year, to foreign travel, right? Like, she accepted awards in Germany and Paris. Just so much. There's still a critical role that she could play in weighing in on the issues. And because she was emerita, she always says emerita means happiness. She only has to weigh in on the things that she wants to weigh in on, the issues that are signature to her legacy, like healthcare and defending democracy and women's rights and LGBTQ rights, like all the things that she really wanted to continue to stay involved in that were so important to her, important to San Francisco. She now had the opportunity to make those her focus, and there was no limit to the opportunities to do so, but there was a limit to the number of people.
And I'd say luckily you're one of those people that got to be there. I'm sure you got a lot of like intimate time and just like special moments that you don't get when the staff is so big and the schedule is so crazy. And so I'm sure you got some cool opportunities there as well.
Yeah, and the thing about all of us who were lucky enough to stick around, saw our roles expand dramatically. I was the speechwriter in the speaker's office. I took over the press portfolio as well, but also was now managing a team. I had one or two other folks. I had two folks initially, and then down to one on the press team to manage. Right now I'm a manager. Also, I'm doing advance for events. Sometimes I'm bodying her on the floor. Oftentimes I'm on the calls, event planning, and doing that kind of work. I became an expert on local San Francisco issues, right? Because we used to have we had whole teams focused to that, and now it was just the few of us having to do all of it. I became her political guy, right? Doing all the political communications. Your scope just broadened so dramatically when there's fewer people. So we were all, and all of us felt that. All of us were doing more than we had in the speaker's office. All of us were working hard, but to your point, like, such a rare opportunity to get to do something that hasn't really been done before. We're building a new mold of what leadership can look like after leadership. And it was really exciting to be a part of that and to try things and do things that I had never done before. Like I had never talked to reporters. It's not what you do as a speechwriter,
Yeah,
right? You
sure.
just stay in your cave and you write your speeches. But now all of a sudden I'm doing rapid response to things. There was a Supreme Court case that like cited her in its decision to do something horrible. I forget what it was, but having to respond to that moment and the litany of other things that were not in my wheelhouse, but you learn pretty quick when it's just a few of you
for sure.
to figuring it out.
I'm sure it honed you a lot too, and then I'm sure it also helped as you move over to the Democratic National Convention and you're helping write speeches. So you were part of Fenway at that point, and then working with the DNC through that.
So it gets a little complicated. So when I left Capitol Hill, I became a subcontractor through Fenway, and Fenway was the speechwriting firm working with the Biden-Harris and then Harris-Walz campaigns. So that was how I got involved in the campaign speechwriting. So I was doing surrogate speechwriting, ultimately got to work with Governor and Mrs. Walz as a subcontractor through Fenway, which is where I now work. Luckily, they brought me on full time, thankfully.
Guess you did a good job.
By the end, it was like a year-long trial period, real test run. And I guess they liked it. But that was the work I was doing through Fenway. And then the Democratic National Convention. So Fenway was a piece of that, an important piece. Ben Krause, the CEO, was one of 4 chairs, managers of the writers' room.
Cool.
There were 3 others, incredibly talented people, Sarah DeParity, Steve Crouppen, Andy Barr, brilliant speechwriters. And the 4 of them, along with Ben, or 3 of them plus Ben, were the 4 folks in charge of that writers' room.
Cool.
So that was sort of a separate project from the campaign.
Gotcha.
Campaign obviously involved, but different entity, different group of people. And that was a crazy 4 weeks. Because as you'll probably remember, who could forget, we got a new nominee.
Wait, what?
3 or 4 weeks before that convention.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, unless you've been waking up out of a coma after.
Just thinking about the context though of it all, that just stresses me out.
So they had built these 4 brilliant people built a team, and it was about 30 of us, and under their leadership we had speechwriters to presidents and CEOs and athletes and celebrities, like some of the most brilliant people I've ever worked with on that team. We had professional speech coaches and delivery coaches. We had a full digital apparatus also supporting us and doing a lot of their own work, but making sure the speeches were optimized for digital. So important in today's media environment. But and then we also had logistics professionals and people who could help us out on that end too. Just a team of superstars. And for context, we were in the United Center for about 2 straight weeks, buried away, never saw the sun. They stuck us in the Chicago Blackhawks locker room.
That's cool, though.
Very cool, but really crammed. It's built for a team of 15 guys.
Yeah, not a lot of guys on a hockey
big
team.
guys for sure, but you throw us all in there, and we all got it's used laptops and cords strewn all Celsius cans everywhere, and pads and papers and printers and everything you can imagine. And they had set up some tables, so we had some writing spaces. They also had some leather sofas that we were able to sit and write. One guy stood at the kitchen counter and wrote from there. You just kind of find your space and carve it out and do what you can. But we were all in there for all hours, just cranking these things out. And typically, I was not a part of a convention writing team before. My understanding is when you know who your nominee is, typically you're able to start sooner on, right? Because you have an idea of what your message is. They can build out the program of speakers over 4 days, and you have a good sense of what you're doing. But everything got thrown out when the ticket switch happened, and we basically had to go from scratch. Luckily, we weren't involved. We weren't charged with the speaker order, right? We just got the speakers, got connected with them, and we had to produce their speeches. All in all, it was over 200 speeches that were delivered over 4 nights.
Wow, that's crazy.
And every one of us had, I think, 8 to 10 speeches that we were responsible for, and every speech it sort of had 3 goals. It needed to be authentic to the speaker, it had to be effective and aligned with campaign messaging, and it had to be accurate, legally fireproof, right? So we developed a 50-step process optimized to meet all of those metrics of success. And that's how you got from blank page to teleprompter ready. Okay. Actually, I think the final step was delivered, right? So it's even past the teleprompter step. But every one of the speeches, all 200, had to go through that process. And some of them, because every principal is different. Sometimes you go to step 3 to 8, then back to 4. Sometimes you just do 1 to 50 all together.
Yeah.
But it was very much on the individual writer and the principal they're working with to navigate through that process and make sure every box was checked. We had a master spreadsheet of, has legal seen this, has, the campaign seen this, have the researchers seen this, and then has it been rehearsed? Okay, were there edits coming out of rehearsal? Do we need to get those edits re-cleared by legal, research, and campaign message folks? All the way, and every speaker got to do 2 or 3 test runs. We had a full mock stage with a podium and teleprompters and cameras, so they could do 1 or 2 rehearsals per person, just to get very comfortable giving the speech. And obviously, there's edits coming out of that. So there was a lot of movement, a lot of activity in the Google Docs to get all that done. And then I had the job of making sure every speech got into the teleprompter. And let me tell you, you've never experienced anything as nerve-wracking as
like
getting
that
a
episode of
speaker's
Veep,
literally, and anything can go wrong.
Yeah.
The wrong version can get uploaded. A speaker can call at the last minute and want to insert something. It could get inserted into the wrong speech. The teleprompters guys, God bless them, were brilliant, professional, knew exactly what they were doing. And they had 2 computers. 1, they were running the show, and 2 was the exact same text, but if there was an edit, it had to go into computer 2.
Okay.
And then between speeches, they would flip the HDMI port or whatever the tech is not my ball game, but they would flip it, so then they would use the other computer, and then they would go back.
Confusing.
But they knew how to do it. But my job was to come knock on the door and be like, hey, so. One time we even added a speaker, I think, mid-show. We wrote a speech. They needed to they needed to fill time because we had been running too fast. So they found a speaker, we wrote the speech, then I had to go shove it into the teleprompter right before it went on. There were some moments like that, but I would need to be fact checked on it. I would want to talk to teleprompter guys. I don't think we made any show-stopping errors.
That's great.
I don't think we made any truly catastrophic show-stopping errors. The way you see at some of the other conventions, I think the Republican convention had one where the teleprompter crapped out. We never had that.
That's great.
We were on time and on show.
So with this great resume that you've had, you've become very deserving of a little break where you can kind of take a step back, relax a little bit. So tell us, to wrap up, about your journey after separating from politics a little bit. Yeah, well,
I wouldn't say I'm separated. A lot of the work Fenway does, we're looking for leaders who want to make a difference. And especially in this moment, there are voices that need to be heard and stories that need to be told. And we're working with some campaigns. We've worked with some members of Congress, with some governors who have a story to tell and need it to cut through because it's such a noisy environment. So we're always looking for folks in the political realm specifically that want a little help getting their story out there, and we're very equipped to do that in traditional speechwriting ways and in all of our capacities. But so I still get a little bit of it. I'm not fully out of the political environment, but it's a little bit more balanced. We also have corporate clients. We're doing nonprofit work, philanthropy work, some sports work, some celebrities, or whatever comes in, because we built up enough of a brand that folks are coming to us with all sorts of projects. So
that's great.
It runs the gamut. My days are a little bit more varied. I'm not just banging out 8 speeches a day like I used to. 8 might be an exaggeration. It's not just pure volume play. And one of the things I'm working on personally as I continue in my professional development, because I like to think I'm still youngish, is figuring out, now that I'm no longer valuing myself as a volume shooter, right, as someone who can just crank out good enough speeches at a high clip, but how I grow as a quality writer when given the lead time, right? Cool. So if I have a week to write a speech, now that I don't have to do 8 speeches a day leading up to that, how do I use that week to make it an even better speech, to take it to that next level? Very cool. And luckily I have brilliant colleagues, all of whom I've admired for a long time, who are helping me on that journey and teaching me and editing me and helping me grow as a writer in ways that I hadn't before. And I think that's another thing about the Hill. Sometimes you move too fast, that you're picking up new skills, but are you really honing the skills, getting better in specific areas, drilling deep? And this team has been so fantastic. They say don't meet your heroes, but these heroes they've been, these are legends of speechwriting, and getting to work with them has been such an honor. And I'm learning a ton from them. So it's not I'm not calling it it's not a break. It's not a break at all. It's very different, but it's a chance to grow and to refresh and to expand my brains and my skill sets in different ways that when you're doing the same thing for 5 years, I got pretty good at that thing, but it's now time to figure out what's next and how to grow as a professional. So that's what I've been up to. So after 10 years in DC, I've put my things in storage. My girlfriend and I are getting out and seeing more of the country. So we're city hopping over the next year. Goal is to come back. Really love this place. This is home to me, but time for a little change. And when life hands you an opportunity to do that, you do it, because Fenway's fully remote and she's fully remote. Beautiful. And we have a chance to exercise some of that flexibility. So on the road, but I was thinking about what are some of the hobbies, and the travel doesn't really count. That's just sort of my lifestyle now. But the thing I'm really interested in is food. It's restaurant hunting. I want to go find the best places in everywhere I've been.
Nice, that's fun.
People tell me, here in DC, I've been here 10 years. I've built a spreadsheet of more than 200 or 300 restaurants that I've tried in this city, and it's organized by neighborhood, and it has notes on the type of cuisine, on the vibe, whether it's like casual or if it's fancy, some notes based on the experience, and a star rating, 1 to 3 stars.
Love it.
And it only makes it on the spreadsheet if I actually enjoyed it. So a 1-star thing on the spreadsheet is still noteworthy to some extent, but people who pop into DC, where should I eat? Easy, just share them on the spreadsheet.
So we need to have a Aaron Bennett section of district discoveries in our Wednesday newsletter, and just source all of our content from him.
But it's not just the district. So my point was, going to all these different cities, I'm also looking for the best places. I just spent 2 months in Chicago, and I think we got to 200 places over the course of 2 months.
That's
just
crazy.
trying everything.
That's great.
And one of the driving forces is I'm on the quest to find the best burger in America.
Okay.
And I try to go to every city I'm in. I try to find the best one. I think here in DC, I really like Duke's Grocery.
Okay.
I really enjoy it, especially in the morning, you get an egg on it. It's fantastic. In Chicago, I'd say I really enjoyed Levitt Street Inn and Tavern. It's a smash burger. It's absolutely delightful.
Perfect.
New York, Al Cheval. I try to figure out every place that I go. But the best burger that I've ever had.
Okay, good.
This is gonna go way back, and we're going back in time. Ever since I was 5 years old, my dad went to the University of Michigan, so I'm a proud Michigan fan, even if I didn't get a chance to go there myself. He's been bringing me to Ann Arbor every year to go to a football game. And every year we would also go to the same burger spot, Blimpie Burger in Ann Arbor. And to this day, it is the best burger I've ever had.
Nice.
A triple burger on that. It's one of those places where you order it sequentially. They ask you how many patties, and then what do you want on it, and then the bun toasted. They build it in front of you. Smell it, just old school. That is absolutely fantastic. Bar none, the best burger I ever had. Blimpie Burger in Ann Arbor. And I'm just chasing that.
Yeah,
so
I feel you.
That's my mission for the time being.
Love it. Thank you for making sure that was in there.
I had to. You asked me to show some personality.
I know, it's my fault. It's my fault.
I got too in the weeds. People are going to think I'm a crazy person because of how I write a speech. So I figured I had to show at least I have some
Humanize
hobbies.
yourself a little bit.
I like to eat.
There you go. Aaron Bennett, thank you, sir. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you for tuning into Capital Spotlight Podcast. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to our channels to stay updated on new releases, share the show with your friends, and rate the show on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. For more from Connect, subscribe to our daily newsletters, follow us on social media, and check out our website, all at Capital Connect, capital with an O, CNCT. See you next time.